All right, well, thanks everyone for joining us. I'm Phil from Greeley Station, and I am here with...
My name's Jess. I am a clinical mental health counselor here at Caliber Counseling. This is my office that you can see us in here. If you guys wanted to get in contact with me, probably the easiest way to do that is to go to my website, which is calibercounseling.com. And there's different ways you can contact me. There's phone numbers, contact forms. It's also a way that you can kind of briefly get to know me a little bit. So that's an awesome resource there.
Cool. So we're going to talk a little bit about mental health right now, which is really particularly important because of our current situation.
Yep.
But before we get started, just tell us a little bit about what you do at your practice.
Yeah. One of my primary focuses for my practice is I work with first responders. So anyone who's on the front lines, so medics, firefighters, folks in law enforcement, nurses, counselors, doctors, lawyers, basically folks that are in a position where it's not as easy for them to seek mental health treatment because of the types of jobs that they have. I also work a lot with the queer population. And basically with anyone that would have a little bit of a higher risk for whatever reason and need a little bit higher level of either confidentiality or a little higher level of support, or seeking counseling has more risks for them than some of the general population. Those are a lot of the folks that are my favorite clients to partner with and do life with. So.
Cool. And if somebody reaches out to you, what's the process of that? Or I suppose just in general for anybody who's looking for mental health support this time of year, or this season, I should say.
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways people can reach out and find a good counselor. I think the really important thing to remember is if you try out a counselor and you don't like them, try again. Because not everyone's the same. Everyone has different styles. They have different expertises. And finding someone that's a good fit is huge, and finding someone that you're comfortable with, because it's a vulnerable space and it's not a comfortable thing to do, because we're looking at demons from the past and struggles from the present and worries about the future. So having someone you're comfortable with is huge. So if you reach out to someone and it's not the right fit, you're not comfortable with them over email or whatever, try again. Another option that I offer is I do a free 30-minute consult with any new person. It's a way we can get to know each other. And we touch base for 30 minutes. Now it's via telehealth. Normally it would be in this office. And we just kind of talk and see kind of what they're looking for, where they're at. I explain who I am, how I practice. And if either of us thinks it's not a good fit, then I act as a referral source and let them know, hey, I have this colleague that might be a better fit for you. And that can save some of the legwork for people, because it can be exhausting. Another option, you can go on Psychology Today, and you can put in your zip code and it'll show you all of the counselors that are in your area. And that can be overwhelming because there's lots of them. But also, if you're looking for something in particular, you can put different filters in, like I want one that specializes in this or doesn't do this or whatever. And again, read through the bios. Like, they'll have little bios, and if it just feels to you, don't go. You know, like if you get that gut sense. But if one is like, oh wow, like I want what they have, then send them an email. See if they're accepting new clients. Insurance can be another thing. So if you're looking to use your insurance for your sessions, you can contact your insurance company directly, and they can let you know what practitioners take their insurance, because that can be a very limiting factor, because sometimes there'll only be a few practitioners in an area that accept a certain insurance.
This might be an odd question, but how would a person evaluate whether or not therapy or counseling would be something that they should pursue?
Yeah, I think there's two different times in life someone should seek counseling. One time would be if you feel like your life is disrupted enough that it is not healthy. Like if you're consistently having moments throughout the day, or you're consistently waking up in the morning and you're going, this is not the life I want to live. Or my marriage is not how I want it to be, or I'm not raising my kids the way I want them to be, or I'm frustrated with my work, or I'm frustrated with school, or I'm having a hard time getting out of bed at all. Or if there's any one place in your life that you're consistently feel discontented about on a regular basis, I think those are awesome moments to go, I need to go see an outside source that can help me figure out what the path I need to take to getting to the point where I can enjoy my life again. I think the other time when therapy can be awesome is if you're feeling pretty stable and you're feeling pretty good, but you know there's demons in your past that haven't been dealt with, that's another awesome time to go. Because if you're having no crises in the present and you feel pretty stable, but you know there's things from the past that put their little tendrils out and touch you, go to therapy when you're stable. Because then you can deal with the past in a way that's going to be very productive. You're going to be able to get things done. The process is going to move way quicker. So those would be the two. There's lots of good reasons and times to go to therapy, but those would be the two that I would say would be triggers in our head to be like, this would be beneficial, a worthwhile way to invest in myself.
Great. Well, remember that we are live, so if you're dialed into the feed, I'm watching right now for any questions that you guys might have. Misty Treffry actually has a question about, in the current situation, do you offer online counseling? And maybe that's even a broad question for just the entire industry of counselors.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe almost every counselor right now is offering online therapy. It should be. All our governing boards have given us permission to. So yes, absolutely. Telehealth is the way to go. We way prefer to be able to see you and for you to see us. There's a lot that is communicated non-verbally, so the phone is not ideal. In a crisis, it's fine, and we do it, and it's all right. But it's way better if we can see you, if we can see your facial expressions, if you can see our facial expressions. We can use mirror neurons to get in sync with one another. So absolutely, Zoom, or there's a lot of different platforms that are very, they're HIPAA compliant, which is our governing board that makes sure we're monitoring people's confidentiality and keeping people's information safe. So there's a lot of ways to keep that safety and move it online.
Cool. So let's talk about this current season that we are in right now. And I'm curious, just what's your feeling about what are people generally experiencing and what are people feeling right now in this current time? And maybe how we'll talk about some ways that we can manage our emotions right now.
Absolutely. I am hearing from folks kind of a polarizing type. So I'm getting two very different experiences from folks. One group of folks are experiencing extreme isolation, extreme boredom, extreme lack of all the positive things that normally fuel their life. So their life went from 80% movement to 10% movement in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
I'm hearing from another group of folks that their life went from busy, hectic, running fast to now running on super hypersonic speed. And so one is in like a vacuum of a lot of the action, a lot of the things have been removed, and the other is everything's just been hyped up, and now everything's just it's just buzzing. And on both sides of that, people are experiencing extreme stress. And that's just a thing. And I think the most important thing to realize right now during this time is there is no right response. I've had folks come in saying, like, I feel like I'm psychotic. Like, I feel like I'm hearing things and seeing things. And anxiety will do that. It'll play tricks with your mind. And it's totally normal. And you're not losing your mind. It's okay. It's just a thing. And we all have, there's this huge spectrum of human experiences, and we're all experiencing the farther reaches of the spectrum right now, and that's okay. And in the folks that have, less going on, I've heard people say, like, this should be a vacation, I should be able to rest, and this should be good, and instead I'm feeling very anxious and very depressed and having suicidal thoughts, and so much of this type of stuff is coming up. And again, that's really normal. And in regards to that, since that thought is on my mind, if any of you are in a dark space, if you have having suicidal thoughts, if you're feeling unsafe, please reach out. If you feel mostly safe now, reach out to a friend. If you're not feeling safe now, please reach out to our local crisis center. You can call 911. They'll refer you. Don't feel like you have to fight those battles alone, because we don't want to lose you. You matter, and we want you to stick around.
So how do we care for others at this time? If me as the individual, because I'm not, a therapist, but are there ways or things that I can be doing if I'm feeling fairly stable that I can be watching out for, or ways that I can care for folks?
Yeah. I think a huge thing for both self and others right now is this idea of grace, of we are all under stress and we're all going to be doing and feeling things that are outside of our normal. And what does it look like to hold each other, hold ourselves and hold each other with open hands? This idea of like, I know this is not who you are. If you're acting in a way that is less ideal, this is a response to stress. And that in and of itself, to create that extra space for people is huge. Like, I know you usually can control your anger, and today you're having a hard time and you're punching the wall. That's not great, and not at all to, like, we cross lines if it becomes abusive behavior. But when it's this side of abusive behavior, to give each other grace and give each other space. If everyone's just under a lot of stress. Mm-hmm. And if we can pause and go, it's okay. And to those folks that are isolated and in these vacuums, reach out. Mm. Say, hey, can I Zoom you for 15 minutes? How you doing? Can we play an online game together? Like, I don't know, whatever the thing they would be, to just let people know they're not totally alone. Mm-hmm. And to normalize. Like, I've heard so many parents say, like, I don't know how I'm going to survive with my children trying to get on school and they're having meltdowns and they're sobbing and then I can't get on my work computer because no bandwidth. And, you know, just these types of things. And to say, you're not a bad parent. It's normal. Everybody's really stressed and it's okay. Mm-hmm. And your kid will be okay and we'll let them cry and it'll be okay. And for our folks that are super busy, decrease your exposure as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So that we're not adding to the problem. Mm-hmm. And also, like, be kind to our grocery store workers. Be kind to our first responders. Mm-hmm. If you don't need to go to the ER, don't quarantine yourself. If you have a friend or a neighbor that you know is a first responder and they're not able to go home because of exposure, send food over to their house. You know, call your local delivery place and say, hey, you know, their dad can't go home because he's a firefighter and he got exposed, and so now they're operating as a single parent home in this chaos right now. Can we deliver sandwiches one night or something like that? And that can both benefit our small businesses and also lets our first responders know that we have their back. So.
Great. That kind of fits with a question that we had from Tammy Van Drunen on here. Also, how can we help our friends who are first responders? Which I think you've answered. Are there any other thoughts on that?
I think giving great mercy to the types of things they're having to face and the decisions they're having to make. Our first responders operate under a lot of stress on a regular basis, and they face a lot of pressure, and they see a lot of death and a lot of pain, and they face a lot of the darkness that most of us would see once in a lifetime. They see it daily, and now that's been notched up even farther. And so to let them know that we care and let them know that they're seen, and also check in on them, because there can be this, like, you know, Superman type of mentality of like they just get it and they just do all the things and they just take care of everybody else. But who holds space for the heroes? Who heals the healers? So letting them know that it's okay to say the things and feel the things.
Are there things we should avoid saying to them, or things that we should be saying to them?
I think the biggest thing I would say is before you ask a question or before you say something, ask yourself, am I asking this for me or am I asking it for them? And I know that doesn't give a direct answer, but I think it gets to the heart of the issue. Because I'll hear a lot of folks, I used to be a first responder as well, and I would get questions all the time about, like, what's the worst call you've ever seen? Or, like, in this case, it would be, what's the worst COVID call you've had? And we don't want to think about the things that still give us nightmares. We don't need that, you know? And that's for you. You're not asking that for us. You're asking that for you. And so instead would be, is there anything that happened today that you'd like to talk about? Because that's for them. And so just as an asker, putting that in your head of, like, what's my motive here? Like, because if you want to watch have a gory experience, go watch a gory movie. You know, don't pull our first responders into that, because they don't have any need to say the things that is just their life. So.
Let's focus now more on home, on the home front.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of folks are feeling that sense of being cooped up. First question I want to ask is, how do we talk about this with our kids? How do we talk about the coronavirus situation with our kids?
I think it's going to depend dramatically on the age of our kids, the maturity of our kids, where our kids are at. the reality is most of our kids have access to media, and so they already know a lot. They don't understand a lot, but they already know a lot. And I found questions like, what things are you scared of? To be super impactful, to just open the door and see. I was talking with a kiddo's friend the other day and asked him that question, what are you scared of? And he said, I'm scared that all of my friends are going to move away while I'm locked in the house and I'm never going to see them again. And like no understanding of a virus really, no understanding of any of the things, but just they're gone now, and so that means they're all going to move to different states and just be gone.
Right.
And those types of things we can actually easily address and alleviate those types of fears.
Right.
But we don't know them, and we would assume they would have quote unquote logical adult fears, and they very well might not. We're seeing a lot more kids having nightmares. And it's things like the boogeyman is coming to get them because they don't understand. And so now we just have monsters, and because they don't understand COVID and viruses, and we barely do, right? So just giving space for, like, do they need an extra nightlight on? Do they need a change in schedule? And if your kid is losing their crap and is melting down and sobbing on your floor, it's probably not the time to be really strict about enforcing behaviors. Now is the time again to have that grace and hold with open hands and say, you know, schoolwork, it's important, but it can wait 10 minutes.
Sure. Why
are we so dysregulated? Because also our kiddos are under a lot of stress. And so how can we extend that same mercy we're extending to ourselves and to our neighbors? How can we extend it to our kids and expect extremes? Like, you know, my kid hasn't thrown this type of tantrum in a month, you know, in a year. I thought they grew out of it, right? We might see some age regression or age progression. So kiddos that usually play and act like kids, now all of a sudden they're acting very parentified, very much like they're older because they feel like there's pressure and they need to be responsible. And so how can we allow them to play and open up space for that? Or kiddos that have been more responsible and now they're not potty trained as well, or they're having more tantrums, and we're seeing these regressions, and it's just their nervous system trying to deal with the fact that the world doesn't make sense anymore and everything's different, and they don't have the language for it, and so we just see it in their behavior, and we're their rocks, like
as the grown-ups, as the adults.
Yeah. And even when we don't feel like we have our stuff together, pull it together to the point we can, to have space for our littles, and then we also get to step into the garage and yell and throw things if we need to and push on walls, and because we got to give mercy to ourselves too, because it's a hard time to parent. So.
Meaning we can't have this expectation that we ourselves are going to hold it together and be able to care for our kiddos.
Right. No. Yeah. We just have limited resources as humans. Right. We can't be super people. Yeah.
We can't expect to be able to even care for our children well if we're so unregulated ourselves.
Right. Like how do we
and to be able to observe these behavior changes that you're talking about, or being in the presence of mind to ask the right questions, be calm enough to do that.
Yeah, we have to take care of ourselves. Yeah.
So let's ask that next question then, which is, how do we regulate ourselves right now? What are some tools that we need, or how do we get there, or, you know, what are some steps that we can take to calm ourselves or to be grounded at this time?
Yeah. I actually think reaching out to a therapist during this time could be awesome. Could be an awesome opportunity. So if that's something you're interested in, you know, start looking, start considering, see if that would be something that would be beneficial for you. Things you can do at home is get a routine as much as possible. Eat meals at regular times, go to bed at regular times, get up at regular times, so that your body has some sort of rhythm, because everything else feels like it's chaotic.
Sure.
So create some sort of structure. And then what does it look like for, like, I guess I would ask folks to touch it in with themselves for a minute and ask, what do I need? Like, do you feel like you're like buzzing and humming and there's like too much energy? If that's the case, in that space, if you try to do like a meditation, it might make it worse because you're tapping into the quiet and you're already buzzing. You might feel like you're going to lose your mind, and that's okay. So in that case, go for a walk, go for a run if you can, if you're safe enough to do that. Throw on a mask if you need to, and go for a gratitude run. So go outside, and while you're running, think of all the things you appreciate in the world, and make it super small. Like, I appreciate my shoes, and I appreciate that my shoes are blue, and my shoes are not blue, but I appreciate the green trees. I appreciate the air that I feel on my face. As much present things as possible. I appreciate the touch of my kiddo's hand on mine when they wake up in the morning. And run, like, as hard as you can. Let that energy out. If you can't go outside, push against a wall. Find a wall in your house and literally push against it. If you can, without disrupting your family, scream while you push against it. Literally let that anxiety out.
Okay.
Because those things matter. If once you do that, if you feel less like you're like, ugh, meditative practices can be huge and super important for managing anxiety, managing depression. Because what it does is it allows us to remind our nervous system that we're okay. Because our nervous systems right now feel like we're being chased by a tiger. And so we have this like, we need to run, something's eating us. But the tiger isn't actually eating us.
Right.
Like, there's danger, but it's not like that. And so if we can remind our nervous system, you're okay. You can be present, you can be calm, and you can do the things you need to do because nothing's going to bite you right this second. And so meditative practices, especially ones that are body-based, like I love progressive muscle relaxation. You can go online and find some awesome ones for that. They really help.
There's that progressive
muscle relaxation.
Okay. That's something we could find on YouTube.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's some awesome recordings of that. Yeah. Tim Coons actually did a recording for a podcast that has one in it also.
Okay.
That I led with him of a really short version.
Oh, you
of that.
Okay? So you were on a podcast with Tim Coons.
Yeah.
That's something folks can Google.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That
We'll put a link in the description.
Be interested in. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a super short one, but there's longer ones too. But it's a way to use our bodies to remind our bodies and our minds that we are safe and we are present. And the more we can make those things a practice, like, can you wake up in the morning and start your morning with a 5-minute meditative practice every morning? And it might feel hard at first, but it might set the tone for your entire day. Or can you end the day with, like, the progressive muscle relaxation? Some of the longer ones, you can literally put it on your computer and go to sleep to it. Because sleep has been really a struggle for a lot of people during this time. And it allows us to just bring things down a notch and allow us to be functional enough that we can do the things we need to do well, instead of be in this heightened arousal state, which is not sustainable as humans.
Okay. Very cool. I was pausing for just a moment because it looked like we lost the feed, but I think we're still great.
Okay.
I wanted to look at the list of other questions here just to make sure we covered what people had asked. Peter Romero asked, how do we maintain some sense of normalcy and fun with the current avalanche of doom and gloom?
Yeah. I think one super important thing is limit your media access. Turn off your Facebook, turn off your news. Like, watch news 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night. Probably the 4 hours during the middle of the day doesn't matter. Like, you're probably fine. And intentionally choosing to not overload your system with huge amounts of that. And intentionally, like, come up with random ideas. Like, can you make cookies, if you can find the ingredients, with your kiddos in an evening? Can you build a fort with your kiddos? If you don't have kids, can you play a card game with the folks in your home? Or can you play a Zoom card game? It's actually a thing.
Is that?
Yeah, or there's actually, like, if you play poker, there's a way you can do free poker as
online.
a group. Yeah. With friends.
Those are great things I hadn't even considered, but yeah.
Yeah, if you do D&D, like, a lot of those people are doing online groups. Or have a dance party, like, whether you have kids or not. If it's just you and your partner, get naked, put on beautiful music and dance together. Like, celebrate a night out. If you have kiddos, put on fun music and play dance, celebrate, choose to laugh. Because having a mindset of, like, this is awful and this is never going to end doesn't help us. It's understandable, it's reasonable, we give ourselves great mercy for being in that space, but it's not actually beneficial. It's just our nervous systems responding the only way they know how. So we get to remind them what it can look like to play. In the things we practice, the more we practice something, the easier it is to fall into it. So if we're consistently practicing watching news and reminding ourselves how awful things are, the easier it is for our brains to want to watch more news and think about how awful things are. And so if we practice play, if we practice routine, if we practice health, if we practice meditation, it's easier and easier for our brains to fall into that pattern and be called neural pathways. What we practice gets more and more embedded into our brain.
Okay.
And for our kiddos, too. Like, what messages are we throwing to our littles as well as to ourselves?
I wanted to go back to, just in case because this is a concept that I've heard a lot, but this fight or flight, this kind of Neanderthal brain that we go into automatically, and maybe help other people understand that as well, which maybe you can speak a little bit to that, where we go into this automatic that's not actually accurate. We're not being chased by a lion, I think, or a tiger is what you said.
Yeah.
So break that down just a little bit for folks who haven't heard that concept before.
Yeah. So most people have heard to some degree this idea of fight, flight, freeze. Now they've added in that fourth one, fawn. But whatever, it's this idea of if we're in, like, I just like the idea of being chased by a tiger because it's a visual we can all get. If you're walking down the road and all of a sudden a tiger jumps out, there's an immediate, like, you need to do something. So either you run away from the tiger, or you attack the tiger, or you lay down and hope the tiger doesn't eat you, or the fourth one, fawn, would be like you try to offer the tiger a treat and hope he doesn't eat you because he likes your treats. And none of those are choices. You're no longer in your frontal lobe, the front part of your brain that makes good choices. You're in the part of your brain that keeps you from dying. It's just that very basic, like you said, old, ancient part of our brains that keeps us alive. And we should value it. Like, it's super great. It yells danger to us, and it keeps us alive as a species, which is huge. But also, it can get triggered by things. It basically doesn't have the intelligence to know the difference between a tiger or a COVID virus. And so it understands danger. And we've thrown a lot of danger messages out to our brains in the last couple weeks. And so it goes, tiger, 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 being chased by a tiger, there's a tiger, there's a tiger. But there's actually no tiger. And so we can't run, so running doesn't actually get us, there's a lot of physical benefits to running, and it can release that, and that's the benefit of it. Yeah. But freezing doesn't keep the tiger from eating us, because if you do nothing, the tiger can still get you. Like, because that part of our brain doesn't understand that this is a virus, not a tiger. And so
it's a threat.
It's still a threat.
Threat is a threat. We responded one of those 4 ways.
Absolutely. And so we get to remind our brain that we get to take that response down. And a lot of, like, the progressive muscle relaxation triggers, we call it a vagal response, which is basically the opposite of fight, flight, freeze, fawn. It's the thing that makes everything slow down. And when we're doing meditations especially, we do a lot of breathing work. And so, like, you'll breathe in for 3 seconds, hold your breath for 3 seconds, breathe out for 3 seconds, hold out for 3 seconds. In that, you can't do that while you're being chased by a tiger. You physically cannot.
Sure.
Nor can you do it if you're pretending to be dead in the freeze, because it would make it obvious you're alive. And so it makes your brain go, oh, we must not be being chased by a tiger. Because if we're able to be breathing in this way, oh, there's no tiger. Oh, we're fine. And so it reminds your body, oh, there's no tiger.
There's no threat.
Yeah. And so it's a way to, because our brains know there's no immediate tiger, but our bodies don't. And our base brain doesn't know. And so we can literally use our body to trick our body and our brain into being still and being okay to be in the present. I don't know if I made it less confusing or more confusing.
No, I think that was very helpful, actually.
Yeah.
And so thank you for sharing that and explaining that. We're at the end of our segment of our time.
Excellent.
But I did want to just remind people how they can get in touch with you, your website.
Yeah, my website's probably the best way, calibercounseling.com. Also, just wanted to mention again, if you're having any immediate mental health crises, this is not a supplement, this is not a replacement for counseling. Please reach out to someone, get the help you need, be safe. And I would love to talk with you. I have a lot of amazing colleagues that I can refer you to if I'm not a great fit also.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
And this segment was sponsored by Greeley Station, and we just want to connect individuals and businesses and organizations during this time. And so that's why we're here having this great conversation. I want to encourage you, please go to our YouTube channel. look up Greeley Station on YouTube and like and subscribe. And if you hit that bell icon, you'll get a notification every time that we go live on Greeley Station. So
awesome.
Thank you very much for joining us today. And you can look forward to the rerun later today on YouTube, and we'll post a link on Facebook as well.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.